Lula da Silva wins over Jair Bolsonaro in a stunning political comeback in Brazil, but the outgoing president is still to concede. At least 132 people are known to have died as a newly renovated suspension bridge collapses in Gujarat, in India.
South Korea mourns as at least 154 people have died in the crowd crush at a Halloween festival in the country's capital.
Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has won an unprecedented third term as president, making a remarkable political comeback in Brazil. He has narrowly defeated far-right incumbent Jair Bolsonaro in a deeply divisive, down-to-the-wire runoff election. Today we are telling the world that Brazil is back. The Brazil is too big to be relegated to the sad role of pariah of the world. It's a stunning return to power for Lula, whose 2018 corruption prison term, later overturned, prevented him from standing against the then far-right candidate, Jair Bolsonaro.
I want food for everyone, and I know that only Lula can do it. For trans people like me, this means a lot. It's an incredible victory. I think it's representing all black people, trans people, and LGBTQ+ people.
And there's deep disappointment for Bolsonaro supporters. However, their candidate had hinted in the run-up to the election that he could challenge the election results should he lose, in a very similar fashion to former US President Donald Trump. From the highest echelons of power to hell in less than a decade.
The most popular politician on earth.
Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva transformed Brazil's external image beginning of the 21st century and was considered the most popular politician on the planet by the then US President Barack Obama. But in 2017 he was sentenced to prison in a corruption and money laundering case, and he was detained the following year. In total, Lula was in prison for 580 days. Back in 1989, the founder of the Workers' Party ran for the first direct presidential election after the dictatorship in Brazil, but he lost in the second round. He tried his luck again in 1994 and in 1998, without success. The doors to the Palácio do Planalto finally opened in 2002 to the former metal worker and union leader. The inauguration was greeted by many left-wing dignitaries who did not miss the ceremony. Lula's first mandate was marked by social advances, the increase in the minimum wage, and the first ever welfare program in Brazil's history. But in 2005, the first corruption scandal broke, known as the Mensalão, a scheme which diverted funds to buy votes in the Brazilian Congress. Even so, Lula was elected the following year, extending his term for a further 4 years in office. Lula's second mandate was heavily marked by external affairs, such as the integration into the G20, the formalization of the BRICS, the group which includes Russia, India and China, and the awarding and organization of two major international events, namely the 2014 World Cup and the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio. With popularity still high at the end of his second term in 2010, Lula participated in Dilma Rousseff's victorious campaign. But the conviction handed down to him removed Lula from the presidential race the following year. In 2021, the Supreme Court overturned the convictions and reinstated his political rights. The subsequent dismissal of the case that landed the former president in prison gave now the nearly 80-year-old politician extra motivation to face yet another run for the presidency. International reactions to Lula's win in Brazil have started to pour into social media. Lula himself said he will end hunger again and rebuild international relations as a matter of urgency. Josep Borrell, the EU's top diplomat, said the Brazilian citizens went to the polls to elect the new president in a peaceful and well-organized election. Antonio Costa, the Portuguese Prime Minister, said he already had the opportunity to warmly congratulate Lula on his election as President of the Republic of Brazil, and that he looks forward to working together. Pedro Sanchez, the Spanish leader, congratulated Lula with a tweet that read, "Let's work together for social justice, equality, and against climate change." French President Emmanuel Macron has said this opens a new page in Brazil's history. Together we will join forces to face many common challenges. And the most powerful leader of them all, Joe Biden, was quickly to tweet, "I send my congratulations to Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva following free, fair and credible elections." Followers of President Bolsonaro were left disappointed after the vote saw Lula getting 50.9% of the valid votes.
Tears and disbelief spread through the crowd of Bolsonaro supporters as the results of Brazil's election reveal a close defeat for the president.
Today, with great sadness, I declare that our president, Jair Bolsonaro, did not win the election, but he won the hearts of many Brazilians. We are with you next time, Jair Messias Bolsonaro. I hope that Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva will run a clean government, which was not the case last time. I hope that you will honor the votes that you received, which was not mine.
Dressed in green and yellow, Bolsonaro supporters had prayed for victory over leftist Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva.
Bolsonaro has his flaws like every man, like every human being has. This is the people who can no longer stand the Workers' Party. This is the people who can no longer stand robbery, and that's it. I wash my hands because I did my part. I vote conscientiously. I voted knowing that above all, my Brazil cannot be led by a bandit.
The president reportedly went to sleep after finding out the results, but the divisions caused by this latest presidential battle will not be put to bed as easily.
Survivors and the dead were rushed to local hospitals as rescue operation continued into the night, following the collapse of a footbridge over a river in the western Indian state of Gujarat. At least 132 people are now known to have died, most of them teenagers, women and older people. The authorities said more than 150 people were on the suspension bridge at the time of the collapse. One eyewitness said he had seen several children fall into the river and they were swept away. The bridge, he said, had collapsed in just a few seconds. The 230-meter-long bridge was built during the British rule in the 19th century. It had been closed for renovation for 6 months and was reopened to the public only last week. The state government has formed a special team to conduct an investigation into the disaster.
South Korea's president and his wife have visited a memorial shrine for the victims of a crowd crush that killed more than 150 people over the Halloween weekend. The country has begun a week-long period of mourning while officials attempt to understand how the devastating crush took place.
I wish we could have protected them. I feel guilty, for we have let the young people down.
The accident seems to have happened because of a lack of safety measures and the police not being able to control the crowds. We must urgently increase safety measures.
At least 154 people died as huge Halloween crowds surged into a narrow street in South Korea's capital, Seoul. Another 132 people were injured. 1 cup of butter, 3/4 cup of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. An American librarian is getting her cookie recipes from beyond the grave via tombstones. Rosie Grant has been using TikTok to document a handful of resting places in the United States whose occupants decided to leave behind a recipe for eternity. Though parts of the recipe, like cooking times, are often left out, a problem that some of her 100,000 followers are helping her solve.
I've definitely learned a lot. Like, TikTok will give me, like, in the comments section, a huge portion of my comments are like, this is how you're supposed to cook this properly, or you should use this sort of thing, or like, this is my favorite kind of flour, vanilla, or whatever.
Most of the recipes were found on the gravestones of women who died in the past 30 years. Now, this is an ideal way of sourcing your recipes this Halloween.